Hey guys, it's me Betsy here, and today I'm going to be running a back, and it's called a back case of stripes. And I'm sorry I haven't been reading in a long time. I've been so busy, and finally got a little break to do a little video with you guys today. So this is in English, and my next video, if I remember, it's gonna be in Spanish. So this is a bad case of stripes, and this is how the cover looks. And yeah, so start. A bad case of stripes. So I'm gonna read it. Show you guys a picture after, okay? Camila Green loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All her friends hated lima beans, and she wanted to fit in. Camila was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today she was forgetting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 42 outfits, but none seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, then screamed. Okay. Her mother ran into the room and she screamed too. "Oh my heavens," she cried. "You've completely covered with stripes." This was certainly true. Camila was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Mrs. Cream felt Camila's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camila answered, "but just look at me." "You get back in bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You're not going to school today." Camila was relieved. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid what the other kids would say about her, and she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. That afternoon, Mr. Bumble came to examine Camila. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having an coffee and sneezy, runny nose, chills, hot flashes, diseases, ground knees, short knees, or breath, or uncontrollably twitching?" "No," Camila told him. "I feel fine." When then Mr. Bumble said during to Mrs. Green, "I don't see any reason why she shouldn't go to school tomorrow. There's some ointment that should keep clean, but those stripes in a few days it is doesn't you know where to reach me," and off he went. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at me. Camila, they called her Camila Crayon, and Night of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act as if everything were normal, but when the class said the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue, and she shook out in the stars. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." "Sure," though Camilla turned all a pattern of squares covered her skin. Soon everyone was calling out different shapes and colors, and poor Camilla was changing faster than you can change channels on TV. That night, Miss Harms, the school principal, called. "I'm sorry, Miss Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camilla home from school. Just too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from the other parents. They're afraid those stripes will be contagious." Camilla was so embarrassed. She couldn't believe that 2 days ago everyone liked her. Now nobody wanted to be in the same room with her. Her father tried to make her feel better. Is there anything I can do for you, sweetheart?" he asked. "No, thank you," silent Camilla. What she really wanted was a nice plate of lima beans, and she had been laughing at and though for one day. Well, yes, I see," Mr. Bumble mumbled. When Miss Cream phoned the text day, "I think better to bring specialistics. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Mr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats and inductor trying to be creams. "This is Dr. Grope, Dr. Sponge, and Dr. Cricket." And young then the specialist went to work on Camilla. They squeezed and scabbed and tapped and tested. It was very uncomfortable. "Well, it's not as Mum's," included Mr. Grove. "On the list," said Mr. Sponge. "Definitely not the chicken pox, but it," said Mr. Cricket. "Oh, sunburn," said the young. "Try these," said the specialist. They each handed her a bottle filled of different colored pills. "Take one of each before bed," and Mr. Grove. Then they filed out the door, followed by Mr. Bumble. That night, Camilla took her medicine. It was awful. Then she woke up the next morning and she felt different. But when she got dressed up, her clothes didn't fit. She looked in the mirror and then started back at her was a giant multicolored pill with her face on it. Mr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Miss Cream called, but this time instead of specialists, they brought an expert of Gord and Milan were in the finest scientific minds in the land. Once again, Camilla was spoken in Padus, looking at and listening to the experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together, and whispered. Mr. Gold finally spoke. "I might be nervous," and announced it, with a fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camilla, "or possibility some from a bacteria," said Mr. Gap. "Then tails could not fungus," added Mr. Gore. Steadily, Camilla. The experts looked at Camilla, at each another. "We need to go over these numbers again, back to the lab and grow explained. We call it when we know something, but experts didn't have a clue, much less cure. But now TV news had found out about Camilla. Reports from every channel were outside of her house telling the story of the embarrassed case of the incredible Shannon kid. Soon a huge crowd was camping out of her front lawn. Loud. The creams were swapped with all kinds of remember-dyes from religious allergies, herbalistic and or old medicine mean a guru and even a veterinarian. Each so-called cure only added a poor Camilla strange appeared until it was hard to even recognize her. She pounded roots and berries and crystals and feathers and long furry tail, but nothing worked. Only day, a woman who called herself an envy Amaran's mental therapist claimed she could cure Camilla. Lose your eyes, and she said, breathe deeply and become one eye in your room. I wish hadn't said that. Camilla groaned slowly and started to melt into the walls in her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nails was a dresser, and two paintings were her eyes. The therapist screamed and ran out of the house. What are you doing to do? Cried Mrs. Cream. It just keeps getting worse and worse. She began to sob. At that moment, Mrs. Cream heard a quiet little knock on the front door. He opened it. There stood an old woman who had just a plump of sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake on her head. Where were the bad case of straights? One of the worst I've ever seen. She put a container of small green beans in front of her bag. She said, these might do the trick. Are those magical beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh no, replied a kind of old woman. There is no much thing. These are just plain old lima beans. Bet you like some? Would you? She asked Camilla. Camilla wanted a big helping plate of lima beans more than just about anything, but she still was afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. Just put the beans back in her bag and started toward the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good and being eating in my stomach. Then there was nothing compared to what she'd been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. What? She cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, the old woman said with a smile. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. Suddenly, the branches, feathers, and tail began to disappear. Then a whole room swirled around. Then stopped. There stood Camila, and everything was back to normal. She couldn't shouted, "Yes, my," said the old woman. "I knew that real. You just weren't there somewhere," planted Camila. Head that went outside, then Ted vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camila wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate lima beans. She wanted to. Never had ever a touch of stripes again. That's the end of the story. I hope you really liked it. Remember to click that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give it a huge thumbs up. That's all I have to say. Bye, guys.